Me or you?
You. What are you
Okay.
doing about your driving, brother?
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to a very special basketball beat. It's got to be a basketball beat.
Sure.
Um, Big news tonight. It's news that you might have seen coming. You might have not seen it coming. I don't know. The reviews before were mixed. I think we even had a discussion of what we thought might come based on the tea leaves that you could have read. Uh, Really, I'm stoked as hell to know that Zach Edey is returning next year, and I'm here with my pal Nish to talk about it. And uh, I don't know. I mean, so one of our good buddies, good friend of the show, good friend of the site, Handle, Dr. Jones, is he was telling me, he's like, I can see positives in both ways. You absolutely can see positives both ways. There's no doubt about it. Um, But if you say you'd be happier without the reigning national player of the year on your team, I don't know what the hell's your problem. So it doesn't make any sense to me. So
Uh, totally. I mean, we'll talk about the split decision, but right now, how are you feeling, man? How are
I feel
you
great,
doing?
except for my
I care about
allergies.
you.
My allergies have led to a sinus thing that led to my voice sounding like this, and which is
It
usually
sounds
reserved for the fall. So
lovely, raspy. It sounds like
raspy,
you've been yelling in the stands a little bit.
right? Totally,
It
totally.
sounds like you're in prime form. It's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
We had to
How
dust
about
out,
you? How have
literally
you been
dust.
doing? How's your summer going?
It's great. It's great. The older I get, the more I realize that we're basically leaves, where it's like when the sun comes out and I get lots of water, I'm happier. Who knew? Who
Well,
knew? Which is
Well, we're
basically,
both in the wrong place for that to
I
happen,
know,
right? I
it's
mean, that's
terrible.
the thing. It's
Seven
we are
months out
not
of
we
the
are not
year,
maximizing our sunny days, are we?
7 months out of the year, I'm like, why would anybody live anywhere else except for Western Pennsylvania?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
why? It's the best. And then for 5 months, I'm like, it was a mistake for humans to
That's
settle.
right. That's
It's
right. It's
just
so
like,
bad.
why?
What
It
have I
doesn't, it's
done?
bleak. Everything is terrible.
Yeah,
Purdue loses. It's
yeah,
awful. It's
yeah.
awful. But now we got the news. I think we were probably, I didn't see the Field of 68 interview with Matt Painter until this today morning or afternoon or whenever when you had mentioned it because I don't really keep track of them. And like for
They
some reason
suck. That's why.
the
That's why you don't
algorithm
keep
didn't
track of.
pick it
Yeah,
up for me. So
yeah.
you mentioned it.
Hmm.
And I clicked it. It was a nice little, whatever, 15-minute interview of Painter. He's always good on these kind of
Oh, he's
things.
so good,
And it's
so good.
funny that whoever the not, whatever his name is that isn't Goodman, the other
Right,
guy
right.
who founded the channel,
The other guy.
was like kind of bad mouthing Purdue all year, and then the
Yep.
minute Painter gets on, he's like jovial and happy,
Right.
and it's all this. It's very strange. Like
Yep.
access
Yep.
journalism is very strange, but Painter was close to my feelings on it, at least the way that he was outwardly speaking about it, which was like it's a 50-50 shot. We don't know. We're in information gathering mode, all of this. And Goodman was really smug, his normal Goodman self, for better or for worse. And was like, yeah, Zach's probably coming back. And so I didn't really know what to make of that. It took until about 9 Eastern, for the decision deadline at midnight, and it makes a ton of sense. I think, I'll speak for myself. I have always been an advocate for players getting paid. I've always been an advocate for it is better some way of players getting compensated is always better, that even in chaos is always better than a system
We
where
are
they're
in
not allowed
chaos.
to be.
We are in chaos.
The NCAA heard me and said, "Okay, monkey's paw," and
Exactly.
curled, and it
There
was
it
like it's
goes.
now chaos. So
Yes.
there are,
Yeah.
Painter talked about it, where it's like there's a million things to complain about, but NIL and the ability to get compensated for being a famous athlete, this is the flip side of it.
This
We
is what
can
Painter said. He put it perfectly. Put it perfectly, right?
complain, and for good reason, about Hunter Dickinson, and Painter kind of called out Hunter Dickinson without actually saying it, which I thought was really uncharacteristic of him. But Painter's probably liked by all of the Big Ten coaches for this reason. Like, all of them like him, and he kind of likes all of them. He doesn't really have any rivalries, and he probably saw Hunter Dickinson leave a Michigan program that's been extremely loyal to a fault to him for the highest bidder in Kansas. And he's like, that part of it is a little strange, but the flip side of it is that these athletes who are driving revenue should be able to get something themselves. And we are seeing the good side of it. Players like Zach Edey, like Drew Timme, like last season Oscar Shigwe, who might have a place in the modern NBA, but absolutely have a place in modern college basketball, right? And now you can make the same, at the very least, the same living. For some people, for Zach, I think it would be more staying in school and being like upping your Q rating, developing, like playing that level. And now for Zach, kind of avenging a loss. We can talk about the loss that shall not be named, later. But it's like
Mhm.
all of these things, plus Zach being the kind of person that like thoughtful kind of person that he is. It kind of swung everything Purdue's way, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing that Goodman was right about, by the way, hello, Ava Helvey. Thank you for tuning in. One of the best fans of the Handsome Hour basketball beat and quick cast around, by the way, Ava Helvey. Um, but one of the things Goodman he called his shot. He knew something.
Yeah,
He said that Purdue was going to find a way to work around the kind of unusual laws for non-U.S. citizens. They were going to schedule a game in Canada, and Zach would get the gate, and that's how they would work around that. And sounds like it's between a million and a half a year for Zach. Is that about right?
I'd
Is that what
say
you
I
heard?
mean I would be surprised if it wasn't a million. Yeah,
Right.
so
That's
that's
more than I made in college because I
me.
worked at Kerry Quad's Night Spot Grill.
I was, I worked for the biomedical engineering department, and I was a campus tour guide. So I worked two jobs,
Right. So
but
you probably were close to a million.
it,
I was
it,
well below that.
he still makes more than me, made more than me, but it was close. It's close. I got to
Yeah.
pull out the old checkbooks. I got to pull out the old, audit myself a little bit.
Right. Right. Yeah. Just give a look back.
When
The
credit card, when you had to put the big credit card onto the thing, go shunk shunk,
shunk shunk.
all of
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. There's no doubt that we see the good side of this. Painter talked about that too. He talked about the gross underbelly. I sent you guys that article earlier today about the SEC, how every school is pretty much breaking not only NCAA rules but also state law, the way they're paying out the NIL. And I don't really understand how they're breaking law, but the article mentioned
yeah.
that they're working around things, and I'm sure the states in the deep South to prop up football have no problem. I was shocked to read anything about the SEC potentially cheating. That had me floored, as you know. But the takeaway that I keep coming with is that this new era, the kind of bridge era we're in, because I don't think it's going to
It's
stick here.
absolutely a bridge area. Yeah.
This bridge era isn't going to help Purdue at all. This is nice to have Zach Edey sticking, but you've seen over and over programs that are willing to use this as an incentive to sign guys. It's working for them, and it's not. You don't have to look that far south. You can look in Bloomington. It's working for them. But IU had that word infrastructure a long time ago. If you had the infrastructure, the ability to place bags or wads of cash in the right place at the right time, the infrastructure was already there. It's just now it's above board, kind of, even though it's not. It's still not, by the way, if you don't understand this, it's still not within the rules to say the NIL is used to sign somebody. Although almost every major case that's public right now, it is the reason they signed.
Yeah,
It
of
was the
course.
reason that Dickinson signed. There's no other way around it, right? I mean, he knew his terms before. One thing I thought about, maybe you know the answer to this, Anisha, maybe it's case by case, but there's so little precedent, right? It's such a young era we're in where players are represented by agents.
Hmm.
I wonder if these agents get paid the same for a college NIL deal as they do for a contract in the pros. I'm sure those lawyers are plenty smart, but I thought about the way those guys could manipulate a player just to say, hey, Zach, you ought to go to the league because there's this much money there when maybe it incentivizes them. Those guys have to be trustworthy people. And of course, many agents are not. And so that's another element of this right now that
I mean,
everybody's feeling out as we get into
it is,
this brave new
hearing
world.
Painter in that interview reference Mark Bartlestein, kind of one of the biggest kind of NBA agents. He's got a lot of high profile candidates, but he's almost the king of the middle class of the NBA, like the king of that sector. He represented, I think, both Hummel and Moore. Um, and so, and I'm not sure about Carson, but I know that Hummel and Moore were represented by Bartlestein, and also the Chicago ties kind of help with both of them kind of being in Chicagoland, right? And so hearing Painter like directly reference Mark Bartlestein, who he must know really well. Like and kind of talk about talking it through with Zach's family, Zach's agents, like all of these things. It's a new era, and I think you're right. It's a bridge era. I'm not sure. I was of two minds of this when all of this was clearly starting to go down about whether it would actually hurt Purdue or whether it would be kind of a neutral thing. And it's because for the last 20 years, Purdue is really in football and basketball, and now the last 5 years, 6 years in football, and then for the last like 20 years in basketball, Purdue has carved out this niche of player type, of geography, of on the basketball side, retention. We don't take it. Purdue doesn't take transfers, and Purdue doesn't normally send too many transfers, right? All of the, and we'll see if there are any kind of in the wake of Zach's, return. But I'm not sure there will be. It's just like Purdue has kind of carved out a weird and different place that might not be um, to the whim of the median rule, right?
You hope
For
so, right?
players.
I mean, you absolutely hope that that's the case. And one thing that's really interesting because I mean, I don't know if you guys who are watching, we have a lot of people here live. We appreciate it, but I don't know if you've noticed, we haven't had a lot of content, so we haven't had a chance to talk about certain things that have happened, and there have been some interesting developments. Um, One of them, I don't know if you, Anish, you've been reading up on what happened in football. Um, Coach Walters is taking advantage of the NIL, but he also is steering it and shaping it in a way that there's a running back
Yeah.
who is coming to Purdue, and he said, "I'm about that bag." If you don't understand the slang, kids, that means he's trying to get money. Okay, that's what he said before
I
he signed.
appreciate the explanation.
Right,
Very good
right,
explanation. Very good
yes,
work. Good
and
work.
so he's changed his tune though after listening to Purdue's football coach say there's a much bigger pot of gold at the end of this if your career goes the way we think it's going to go.
Yeah.
And so that type of messaging and saying, yes, of course, we are proponents of you making money in your name, image, and likeness. But at the same time, we really want to develop all of you. And this is one thing that Purdue, and this is that niche you're talking about.
Yeah.
Purdue gets these guys in who say, hey, I really do understand that. I mean, it's a weird thing. You see a guy who's going to verbal to Purdue or signs with Purdue, and they say, for business inquiries, dial here. Call my agent here. That's a weird thing, right? This is a new era.
Yeah.
But at the same time, now we're seeing guys that say, yeah, I really do value the fact that I am going to get a degree from a good school, and I might be able to get it done in 2-3 years and then keep my options open. I love the fact that Purdue has the potential, the upside to get to the Big Ten championship game in football, win the Big Ten in basketball, lose to Fairleigh Dickinson. Wait, sorry.
I knew it. It was coming.
It was coming. I tried to hold it back for as long. Be number one in America. Let's focus on that.
Win
right?
November.
Okay.
Hang
In November.
banners
Win
in
November.
November.
November champs. There is something to be said about the Purdue brand of kid, though. There is something to be said by that. Okay. How about this question? This is this idea. A month ago, or I'm no good with time. A month ago, I guess, Purdue, everybody from you and I to every Purdue fan out there said, oh man, they need a dynamic scorer. Let's bring somebody in. Let's get a transfer. Okay. And they get a guy that comes in. He seems not to be exactly what we thought he was going to be. He's a guy who's defensive minded, can shoot if he's given the volume. Michael did a great job, by the way. If you haven't listened to Michael's podcast, he's done a great job at keeping the lights on at Boiled Sports. But he's not the guy we thought it was. And Painter said, yeah, we don't go to the portal unless we have to. Now, the interesting turnabout is everybody lighting up if Zach returns, who's going to transfer out? So we went from to Purdue definitely needs a transfer. That's frenzy. Got to get 2-3 transfers to now they're so rich with talent and rich at every position. Somebody's got to transfer out.
Yeah.
So which one is it? I think Purdue's in a great position actually
love
for
it.
next year.
I
I
love
love it. I love the dynamic guards that are in
Ready to be heard again.
Totally. And I am going to plead with everybody who's listening here. And I know I've got diehards on here. I recognize many of you guys, of course, John Younger, he's a regular. Dylan Kuhn's a regular. Kevin Spry. These are people that Boiler in Texas. These are people that are always here. They're with us. They're living and dying, crying after
Mostly
the painful
dying.
losses. Right,
All of us.
a lot
We're
of
all
dying.
just slowly
A
dying.
lot of dying. But I would plead with you, just like I've already tried to do this at a quick cast. Why not just enjoy things for what they are? Just enjoy them for what they are. Tomorrow is not guaranteed.
Optimistic, boiler down.
Dude, they're gonna be if they're not preseason number one, they're gonna be top three.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Worst case scenario, top 3, probably.
For sure.
How stupid is this to start saying, Purdue fan, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know where my expectations would be. How about you be quiet, grin, and say, this is pretty cool.
I mean, these are the good. It seems strange, but it is like these are the good days, right?
These are the good days. You said that, and it's the right thing to do. It's absolutely sucks that they lost to Fairleigh Dickinson. It's horrible.
Does it really?
It's the worst, and it ripped all of our hearts out. Right? We all had different ways of mourning this.
I walked into a whale's mouth and disappeared for a few
you
months.
were gone for a long time. I didn't, there was no way to get a hold of you.
Yeah, cell phone signal is really bad down there. Right. It's like a Faraday.
But you came back. That's the wild thing. We didn't know what would happen when you walked into that mouth.
I didn't know either, but a deal is a deal. I made the deal in 2018, and I followed through.
But let's go, guys. I mean, like, goodness gracious, if this is not number one thing in your life because you're a Purdue Boilermaker, you got a good education, you got a good life. Basketball's ancillary. It's a nice distraction. Let's just take it for what it is. Let's take a deep breath. Let's get as many tickets as we can afford to get. When you're in Niche and Jay, you're going to sit courtside next to you.
We're just going to get courtside seats for sure.
Yeah, let's go.
I now have another season bought out of my Zach Edey hockey jersey, which is
right. Right, you've amortized that thing.
This is exactly. It's already returned the investment, baby.
Yeah, right on.
So it's the question was whether the biggest question in NIL was going to be in an NIL world, the money was going to be there, and all things being equal, we can tackle things from we've tackled the NIL and the payment side of things. Let's do the unfinished, and then we'll kind of end on the NBA, side. But on the unfinished business side of things, do you think if Purdue would have made just the normal run of a Big Ten title, Big Ten tournament title, Sweet 16 championship, and out, do you think that it would have changed his mind at all, or would it have been kind of closer again to Drew Timme, where they made that Final Four run? He didn't really see what he wanted in the NBA. He got, he'd come back to be the king of campus at Gonzaga. Do you think he would have reached the same conclusion, or did it make his life difficult anymore? Again, knowing that we have no idea what's in his mind.
I think it's a great question. I don't think we know the answer. I mean, I know that there's some podcasts that they like to bring athletes on. I got to tell you, the one thing I don't want to, I would love if I had a relationship with these guys good enough that I'd say, hey, hope you're not too stressed. Hope you're not too busy. Could you come on and talk to us? I just don't feel like I'm the right guy.
I'm good being at the back of the classroom. I'm good being,
yeah. And so the whole thing is maybe somebody else will ask that question because it's a great question, Niche. But I don't even know if he can give you the answer if he would have been more or less motivated to come back if Purdue would have gone to the Sweet 16. In that scenario, by the way, they still would have lost their team they should beat this year.
I mean, until the Final Four, that was, they were one of those teams, right?
We all would have been gutted, by the way. Not as badly.
Oh, really?
Not as badly.
Really? Okay. No,
but we would have been. We all would have been pissed off. We all would have been like, same old thing, same old Matt Painter, right? Same thing.
To be fair, this year was not the same old.
It was not, and that's the thing that I keep saying to people. I'm like, goodness gracious, they were number one for 7 weeks.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that. And you had a guy that not only did guys like Anish start predicting he was going to be National Player of the Year in like middle of the season or before, but then it actually happened. That's the thing. You make this outlandish prediction, Purdue's going to get a unanimous National Player of the Year that gets more awards than trying to think of a good analogy.
I mean,
J Money at a hair contest. I mean, that guy's got an amazing head of hair.
he kept it suppressed, artificially suppressed it for too long. I
Yeah,
think
it's wonderful. Now it's
been,
just it's going. It's so good.
it's down to his shoulders. He was busy blow drying it tonight. He washed
That's
in his
right. That's why
beach
I
shower, and
couldn't
he's
get
not
on.
here. He couldn't be
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Um, but I mean, so the other part of this is so here's Ron Gable. Did Paint likely propose some changes to the offense to move Zach around and showcase more aspects of his game? Do you think any of that um, already happened, or do you think that will happen between now and the season?
I don't believe so. By the way, Ron is in. Ron's a good friend of mine. Ron is in our block of seats in Ross Aid. Appreciate Ron being here. It's a good question, a heady question, just like yours. But I don't think Painter works that way, right? I think there's no reason to believe Painter would be making a promise to Zach. I don't think he'd do that. I think he'd be very straight with him, and I think he'd say, "Hey, you know what? If you think the most important thing for next year is to showcase your ability to shoot the three, your ability to maybe pop out a little bit, whatever, I guarantee you Paint's going to listen to him,
Yeah,
right? So the next part is right. You've got TKR
I
and you
mean,
got
and
Gilbert
first and sorry, and first, but and also
and Berg,
there is precedent for this, right? Recent precedent of a National Player of the Year level player returning to college and developing his outside game to showcase a little bit more of his skills,
right,
right?
right,
Not that it took Biggie away from the post, but when Biggie returned his sophomore year, which until this year for Zach is probably the most outstanding, individual, end to end season that I can remember
right.
since Big Dog, since mid '90s. Big Dog was the first Purdue basketball season I remember. Um, like there is precedent there. Now he didn't completely trash the offense. He didn't completely say it's just always running through you and always running through your threes and it's pick and pop from threes.
Mhm.
But he made that an aspect of it. So I
Well, to
think you're
me,
right.
to me, there's two things that might lend themselves to pulling Edey away from the rim. Okay, a couple things. Number one, we've seen the style of okay, just the biggest, strongest, baddest dude in America. We're going to put him near the hoop and he's going to grab every board and he's going to make your center look stupid. Okay. We know it can do it. We know he can do it. But maybe we see parts of the game where you see Edey hanging out on the right side or left side to open up space
That's it.
for Cam Heidi or for Colvin
So
when they're in the game.
Motor City Boiler has,
Yeah.
I mean, probably the most obvious question that even the coaches are probably asking themselves, which is why would you want your best rebounder out at the 3 point line when a 3 pointer goes up, which is a perfectly fair question, and it
Extremely
really
logical.
and but it
Twitter has
would
no time for this sort of thought.
so it makes sense to keep the best rebounder in the country, especially now that Cheekway is gone. He's left and he's now gone to the NBA. At the rim, right? On one hand, though, it like you said, this year's team with Heidi and with Colvin, it's going to be a lot more
Very,
athletic.
very different. That is
It's
that those two
just those
guys,
two guys.
like I said, do you remember we talked about this? Taking the top off of a defense. These guys can do it. These guys are so much quicker in that first step and so much more explosive around the rim than anybody last year.
Yeah,
This
I mean,
is, I mean, it's not Jaden Ivey, but it's close.
and Jaden
It's
needed
close.
space inside too, and
He did.
that was a part of the contradiction of that team. It's like
Right. You
Painter.
complained about that and you were right.
It's tough because
Yeah.
it's Painter's point was that if he knew that Jaden Ivey was going to bloom into this top five talent, sure he would have loved a more Carson like 2019 like squad around him so that it's more perimeter oriented, it's more
Yeah.
defense oriented, and you just let Jaden run, right? But he had Trevion, he had Zach next, clogging the paint, and it just was that's just how timelines worked, right?
Mm.
Um, Opening the lane up really spaces things for cutters, for drives, for passing lanes, for that first cut on the baseline.
By the way, that's really what Painter's better at than anything, too. Yeah. When you look at the way his offense works, it's cutters and creating space and getting the ball moving. I know we're all very used to the idea that there's a guy with his back to the basket, and that's what defines Purdue because Painter likes a big. There's no doubt about it because he likes the efficiency of that.
Mhm.
But man, he can coach a team to move the ball well too.
And the other part of that is, um, it's really great when you look at a shot chart in the regular season and you see dots near the rim and dots outside the 3-point arc, right? The
Yeah,
math
yeah,
says that that's the easiest way to a million regular season wins. In, there's a clip of Bob Myers, the now departed, now previous Golden State Warriors GM, talking about how playoff basketball in the NBA is a completely different animal. It's ref different, the
yeah.
minutes are different, which means that your lineup is different, which means your depth is different, strategies are different, turnaround time, fatigue. It is a different sport.
Mhm.
When you are 3-point line and at the rim, if they shut down if they're able to overload and shut down at the rim, like they kind of did, like happened in the first round last year, like happened in the first round against North Texas, like happened, last handful of years, right? When the threes aren't going down and the offense isn't based in that movement, that Micah Shrewsbury like style kind of movement, it gums up really quick. And pulling Zach out gives space, like at not off the floor, but in a different spot when that moment happens. Like it frees up the mid range, it frees up movement and like passing lanes and things like that. If you haven't, if you're not an NBA fan, I promise you, watch this finals. You have seen nothing. We have seen nothing like the player you're about to watch. The reigning two-time MVP, Nikola Jokic, is like my vision for Zach, and we can go to the NBA section of this, but my vision for Zach is to be in Denver and to be Jokic's backup because Jokic plays like no other big. He can pass. I mean, he's one of the 5 best passers, not big men passers in NBA history. Magic Johnson and
He
Arvydas
sets up at
Sabonis.
25 feet to pass.
Oh, you
It's
can't play
awesome.
zone. You can't play zone on him because
Right,
he's the tallest player on the floor and the
right.
best passer in the NBA.
What is he, 7'2"?
Yeah, he's massive,
Right.
and he looks doughy, but he's got unlimited energy. Like he never slows down. He's got unlimited stamina. I want
And he
Zach to
doesn't
go.
back away from conflict, which I
Oh,
love
he
about him.
loves. He's tough inside. He can
Yep,
shoot the three, but
yep.
he doesn't fall in love with it. He does it just to keep everybody honest. He spaces the floor for his teammate in Jamal Murray. He screens like he has that screen action, screen and dive, or screen and pop action with Jamal Murray. It's the best 2-man action of the game. That again, it's not. Zach isn't going to be Nikola Jokic, but the fact that there are bigs like that are getting real, time. Even you look at Yusuf Nurkic in Portland. You look at in Orlando. He used to be in Chicago. Um, uh, or no, he's in Chicago. Vucevic, Vucevic. Like there are players like this. There are these kind of bigs like Jonas Valanciunas. There are these players.
Every one of them, their last name ends with an IC.
Let
Why
me
is
give
that?
you another one. He's in
They're
the
all
Clippers.
Slavs.
As the Clippers is another one.
Yep.
It's Zubac, Ivica Zubac. There
There
you
you
go.
go.
I mean,
There
like
you
there
go.
are these kind of players where size still matters. And so the third thing, pulling Zach away a little bit from his kind of the space that he made his home the entire year, is it. What's the difference from contesting the offensive boards versus being furthest away? Zach's the first one to get back. And it's not just the offensive package. One of the things he really has to prove, and this is to Michael's point, he's been hammering this in the podcast, is that he's going to have to prove he can defend at an NBA level. And there's going to be more spacing in the NBA, is more reliant on drivers, so you're going to have to space out there. He's probably in the NBA, he's probably going to find himself away from the basket more in college. And so he's going to have to start getting used to being one of the first ones setting up the defense, right?
Do you think it's as simple? And I saw somebody suggest this on Twitter. Do you think it's as simple as him losing 15 pounds? like
No,
to be a
I
little bit quicker? Is that
it's
or
just
is it
foot speed. I mean, it's
right?
just foot speed,
Right.
right? Like you don't want him. I
But
mean,
his
his
shuttle that we just saw, that
exactly.
it's
Oh,
fast.
I think he's got it. I mean,
Yeah,
and the
I
other
did
thing
too.
is like he is. I think he's going to get drafted and have a whenever next year, and have a solid NBA career just because he's so basketball young. Like he's still so raw, and he's still developing. You saw him in that same video like just display a pure shooting stroke. He can shoot. He's already got what 2 seasons under his belt of proving that he's a good free throw shooter. Right? Like it's not a fluke, right? He's a 75% free throw shooter with hands the size of Shaq. Right? Like he's got that touch. And so to me it's not we've got to start thinking a little bit more creatively. I know Painter is going to because he did with Biggie, and his numbers are going to drop. Edey's numbers are going to drop. They're not going to be the same as they were last year because other players are going to step up and he's going to be in different positions. So he's likely not going to be a back-to-back player of the year.
Right.
He's
Right.
going to end up kind of on that podium, but he's not going to be back-to-back player of the year. But he's going to be a more complete player by the end of next year, right?
Yeah, I don't think any Purdue fan that I know would like be at all saddened by him being in the top 5 for
Yeah.
National Player of the Year. I think the big thing everybody wants to see is there's a reason for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's an obvious thing here. Um, there's going to be, like we've talked about, the growing pains and what's the timing about this team being good. And last year we really said they're a year away from being good. Now let's talk about one other element of this team that will improve. We already talked about the injection of Heidi and Colvin. Braden Smith and Fletch Lawyer with another year under their belt
Mm-hmm.
without being nicked up and dinged up. Lawyer was hurt for half the season. I think you're going to see a dramatic jump in both those guys. And I think some of you may be even a little shocked to find out that Smith is actually pretty quick, because a lot of people didn't seem to recognize that. A lot of Purdue
He's
fans.
deceptively
He's
quick, right?
he's quick. He's quick. And if you've got, I mean, that's the funny thing. If you have the right court spacing with a guy that's going to, dash in and dish, you could have some pretty cool stuff happening there. So I'm excited to see both of those guys. Let's Paint is calculated. The reason he didn't go after people, I think, was twofold. One, he believes in Lawyer and Smith so much that he played him more than any freshman tandem, I think, in the history of modern Purdue basketball ever. I don't think
He
it's happened
trusted.
that
I
two
mean,
freshmen have played that much.
he trusted him more than Etwan and Robbie the freshman year,
Think about
right? I
that.
mean, it took longer for him to. It took Etwan was
Because
about
Etuan
the
couldn't play
same.
defense right out of the box. That was his
Etwan
knock,
was
right?
actually the one that started almost right away.
Right, right.
And Rob, it took him a little bit longer to rely on. And by the time the tournament happened, it
But
was
even like
the two of
Rob
them.
started making shots in really late December, right after the Wofford game, when everybody started getting their
Yeah.
heads screwed on straight, and then he hit that big Wisconsin shot, I think, on the road to win that game. I believe he had the game
Hmm.
winner in that. Maybe that was at Mackey though, because they beat Wisconsin. They
There was a
swept
big one.
Wisconsin.
There was
Yeah,
both. There was a big one at Mackey where it was kind of
yeah,
close, and then there was I think it was the game winner at Mackey, and then it
yeah,
was the close game at
yeah.
Cole, and it
And
was
I,
the
and I
first
think
of.
if you're not a little excited with Lawyer and Smith,
Oh yeah.
I think you're being silly. Again, I just think there's a lot of good things, a lot of upside on this team. Let's not forget, by the way, TKR, one of his big limitations last year was between his ears. He gets so frustrated. If
Yeah.
he can keep his head cool, he's got a very, very high ceiling, because that's a guy that can pick and pop.
Oh yeah.
He's made to go out there, hit a three, and then come in and angrily bang on people. Like, that's the thing. He loves contact. He
Oh, he
probably
does.
liked contact a little too much this year, actually, because but he
A
wasn't
lot of
physically
offensive
ready.
fouls, but it reminded me
Right?
of Edey last year, right, where he kind of got,
Yeah,
or the
2 years
the
ago.
year
Yeah,
before, I suppose,
no doubt about it.
where he was unrefined, but that the fight was there, and that's all you want to see, right? Like you
Right?
you want to see if it's there,
Yeah.
and you know. On the other side, Harms, he kind of shied away from contact in the paint
Right. Different
offensively,
different type of
but
player.
on defense, like I mean, he was ready to block everything, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you want to see it on one side or the other. He's
Yeah.
got it. And The other part of this is that with Heidi, with Colvin, like the offense is the offense will have a better Zach Edey, a better Braden Smith, better Fletcher Lawyer, a better TKR, and be less reliant on all of them. Right? The load is going to be distributed a little bit more. The offense is going to be a little less, I think. If you look at the shot chart, it's going to be less post and threes only. We're going
Mhm.
to see a little bit more passing and a little bit more action in the mid range,
Yeah.
which opens up against the zone also. I mean, like um, that's the other part of the bringing Edey kind of at the at the free throw line, right, and almost like a playmaker role at the free throw line, either as a screener or with the ball in his hands as a zone buster, right? It's
Yeah.
like you see he's the one that can pass, and I saw this kind of before about if only Zach had Trevion's passing, well then he'd be Jokic, but he's still a good passer. He had a couple of games with turnovers, but like he's still a solid passer for a big man, right? And he can still be taught, right? He can still learn. He's growing, right? So
Do you know? I got a logistics question. Maybe you know the answer because I don't. I bet it's a pretty simple answer, but for me, it'd be very, very simple. I saw a video of one of the second tier NBA starting centers. Can't remember who it was. Working with Hakeem Olajuwon on Twitter, and it was pretty neat to see because Hakeem, as an old man, can still his spin move's still
it's a
deadly.
great racket because it's like, why don't you just do
Why
like
don't you do
me,
like
the
me?
greatest big, the greatest
Exactly.
moving big man ever?
Right, right. It is an incredible racket. But to me, if you could get one of these European centers
Yeah,
to
I mean,
spend a week with Zach, here's one thing you guys should know and you should recognize. Most of you probably already do. So I'm saying a lot of things that most of you guys already thought about. But if you haven't thought about it, there's a lot of naysayers out there that talk about Zach didn't have a place in the pros because he couldn't compete with this or Zach, whatever. A lot of stupid people, by the way, on Twitter. I don't know if you guys have figured that out. A lot of them showed up in some threads and tried to um, troll away. Let them troll. It doesn't really matter. Here's one thing you need to look at, and one thing that is an absolute fact. Zach Edey was playing with men as a boy with that Canadian national team and making plays against NBA type of centers.
he was doing what?
making play,
Oh,
making
okay. Oh,
plays.
okay. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, got it. Got it. Got it.
But when he played with the Canadian national team, right, he was still learning and he's a sponge. The guy likes to take coaching. He likes to get better. He likes to hear what people have to say. That's part of the reason he went through this exercise. But if he could get even a little more finesse, a little more Euro game, a little more face up, he's going to be even the more deadly. And I think, Anish, how do you do this? I really don't understand this because you see this all the time. A player will get coaching from somebody. Does the university pay for that? We saw Will Berg as a coach. I'm sure he doesn't pay for that coaching, right? Does Purdue pay? I really don't understand any
It's
of this, how this works.
interesting. I assume so, but like,
Can you
and
guys
I
how much
assume
that would cost? I mean, like, I'm not
it
trying to be funny.
the Hakeem sessions cost a good penny. I
Yeah,
know he wasn't working with Hakeem, but
right,
like those cost a pretty penny, which is why it's a perfect racket for him because it's
right,
like I'm the greatest of all time. Let me just show you my
right.
moves, and you just like kind of do a bad imitation of it here, and here's my ID.
Yeah.
Like, please, here's my Venmo, please.
So Akeem is probably 60 right now. Is that right?
Hmm, I don't know. Well, he
55?
was what
I
drafted
mean, I'm
84.
47. He's
Was
significantly older than
he
me.
was
He's
drafted in 84.
yeah. Oh,
Akeem Olajuwon is, the Googles say he is exactly 60 years old. Happy
okay.
birthday to Akeem.
If you see the video, if you guys get a chance, you could probably do a simple Google search. But Akeem Olajuwon can still move incredibly well at 60. He's 7'2", 7'1", and moves like a freaking ballerina. It is so wild, and 60 years old, so wild. Um, sure, that'd be great if Zach could talk to Akeem, but I really don't want that. I'd rather have them, find
I
me a
want it.
guy from Europe
I
Who's
want him
better?
backing up Jokic, man. I want him backing up Jokic for the next 6 years, right? Like,
Seriously,
or
one
for
of the
the
guys
six
that
years left for you
Wimbenyana
guys.
Yama had to deal with.
Yeah.
Say, bring over one of those guys. We'll pay for your airfare in a week in
Or in the
America.
Spurs, oh man, Zach in the Spurs system as a
Oh
big,
shoot,
like
man.
as the muscle behind
Oh, that'd be
Wembenyama. Like
great.
I again, like there are spots for him, right? And it's really reductive to say that a player like Zach, first of all, there just aren't humans that can move, have the touch, and have the feel for the game that Zach does that are his size. And so, like from that itself, somebody is taking a flyer on him. What probably would have happened is the rough path, this year, where I'm not sure he would have gotten um, uh, you know, an easy path. I'm pretty sure the only people that were like actively kind of knocking for him were Boston, Indiana, and Denver were the ones reported. Now closer to the draft, if he would have stayed, I'm sure more would have gone on. San Antonio does have a lot of extra picks this year. There are folks with extra picks
Pacers
too,
have
and
5 picks in two
Pacers have a
rounds.
whole bunch. Yep.
Absurd.
And so I think he would have, just because he's just like there are kind of athletic marvels, that go and like you're banging on you're betting on their feel for the game and they're just athletic measurables out of the gym. For Zach, it's like different athletic measurables, but it's that same like what in the world am I dealing with here? Like you're seeing a ball of clay, right? And that's the potential thing you keep talking about in the NBA, where it's like with Zach, somebody would have seen it, but it probably wouldn't have been a guarantee. He probably would have been making less,
And
and he probably would have gotten fewer minutes. Right? He's not playing as much. Absolutely, I can guarantee you that. Right?
right,
So
and the silly thing we every one of us have read this. If you spent any time, I really tried to stay away from Twitter last few weeks. I don't think it does me any good. But today I was on quite a bit because I was after about two. I was
yep,
like, okay,
same.
enough. Let's give me an answer here. Um, but one of the things sources kept saying is that Zach was trying to, and I don't even think this makes any sense at all, but the sources were saying he was trying to get a 2 to 3 year guarantee that he wouldn't have a two-way contract. And I think that makes sense that he doesn't want a two-way contract. They want to spend time in buses going from Fort Wayne to Kalamazoo, no doubt, right? But we really don't know. And the way the draft works is if, like they kept saying, Oklahoma City, right? That's where he was today,
Mm-hmm.
and that things went really
OKC was the
well.
other one. That's right.
What'd you say? What was the other one?
Yes, OKC was the
Yeah,
other
yeah,
team that
yeah.
was.
So
That's right.
if that pick, if the right guy fell in their lap, they weren't going to take Zach. They weren't going to take a runner on Zach. And so that's the whole thing where you can say, yeah, we'll guarantee we'll get you that 2 year deal if we pick you, but we don't know if we're going to pick you.
Yep.
And that's the thing. It's such a gamble. And that's why I think Paint talked about this. And I think Zach even touched on this a little bit. There are certain things he saw NBA, not NBA G League or Purdue.
Yep.
Those were his options. And they were both good, he thought, but he really didn't want to be in that in between. He didn't want to be G League and he really didn't want to go to Europe this year.
Yeah.
So I think it was steered right back into our loving arms. We are all so excited that he's here. So it's a good
It's
deal. It's a
he's
good
gonna
deal.
be awesome. He's one of the strangest in a good way players that I've ever watched. I mean, like it's so fun to see. Like it just like month to month, you can see him getting better, right? You can
Yep.
see him getting
Yep.
smarter and stronger, and just like more kind of confident. And it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be awesome to see him another year. It would be nice for one more tournament win. Let's start there. There's just one more. I think. I don't. Does he? Yeah, yeah, of course. Last year made it Sweet 16 championship with Jaden. That's right. But it is like, yeah, the deep run for him is literally the only thing that's missing, other than kind of personal development, like the skills development and kind of skills showcasing, right?
Right.
Showcasing
And the
his
stuff
jumper.
does matter to him. You can hear that, and
I mean, he's
it
already got
bothers him.
everything else. I'm sure that we're gonna see. I've watched enough Zach press conferences to know that he's going to come out, this week, next week, whatever, and say, "I've won every." He's literally won
Every damn
everything
award that he could win.
except going to Final Four.
Right. Right.
except that every single one. And so that's the goal. He's got one goal this year, and so that's fun. Like that's
Yeah.
awesome. Um, Purdue adds a whole bunch of athleticism, like we talked about. Purdue, I think will look like to people that only follow Purdue on a national level. Even Painter was reminding Goodman and the other guy at Field of 68 um, that Colvin and Heidi completely changed the team,
Yep.
right? Like it, I man, Heidi. It's like Colvin. We all know because we know the name, and all of that. It's a Purdue family, Purdue royalty,
Yep.
dude. I don't like layup lines influencing me this much,
But
but like
but
Heidi, what in the world?
goodness
Like
gracious.
how?
His
That's
head
the
was
most.
above the rim all the time in layup
He's the
lines.
most athletic player that Purdue has ever had until next year when Cannon Catchings, joins the squad.
Man,
Um,
I hope that happens. Like I mean, you know what my thoughts are on recruiting. No matter football or basketball, it's the same. And we've seen some weirdness and some, I don't want to say floundering. I don't know the kid well
Sabina
enough.
Young, he's a
He's
kid.
young.
He's
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 a kid.
he's a
He's a
kid.
kid and he's got good counsel. That's something that I love about him. But at the
He's a
same
former
time,
WNBA
there's that
player.
everybody has a screwy uncle, every single one of us. And I'm not going to tell you which one mine is because he may be listening.
He's maybe watching.
Right. Right.
Hey, Uncle
But
Cliff.
everybody, I always say this, you don't know who those voices in their ears are that week. You don't know who's affecting these guys. And so if that screwy uncle was talking to you at Christmas, right? We watched this with Brady Allen.
Yeah.
Brady Allen. So the longer story, if you guys haven't heard about this, Brady Allen, Coach Walters, I guess, didn't talk to him at all before they broke for Christmas. And that bothered Brady a lot, rightfully so. Okay, so I'm going to give him that. That bothered him a lot. And so he had a lot of conversations with his family and he said, portal. So he gets in the portal and he says, you know what? I didn't give this guy a chance. And I think Coach Walters reached out to him and said, I screwed up. You're in the mix. I'd like you to come back. We want you in black and gold. So he came back for spring, wanted to try everything out, see how it went. And it sounds like he was slipping between 2 and 3
Mm-hmm.
behind card.
Yep.
And I think that was enough for him. So he said, I'm heading out. And so at that point, I'm like, yeah, whatever. And he went to Louisville. I got to tell you, like I just saw a video for one of the players, kind of a hype video for the football team, and I had Jeff Brom talking the guy up, and I'm like, I don't want to hear Jeff Brom talking to anybody up right now.
I'm good. We had 6 years, and we had
Yeah,
6 years, and
it was
now I get
good.
to
It was
hear
good, and we
Ryan
appreciate it.
Walters, and he's great.
He is
Like,
great. And I'm
you know what's
excited about Ryan Walters. I'm excited about his new perspective. And I'm excited that he probably has a team that will not let guys flunk off the team like we see over and over under the Brahms in the last year.
the other side of the NIL, to go back to the beginning of like the NIL thing and about Purdue kind of carving its own place in that space. I think it was what's her is it Tiffany Cross? Is that the name of the associate AD? Along with
Oh, yeah. Nancy Cross.
Babinski and Burhoff.
Nancy.
No, Tiffany. No, sorry, Tiffany Grimes. I'm sorry, that's her name.
Okay.
Tiffany Grimes, not Tiffany Cross. Yeah, there's that. Yeah, that's where that was
Don't get me
coming from.
started on that one.
Tiffany
Not so
Grimes, who's
bueno.
probably, if we're lucky,
Everybody loves her but me, I guess. But
she's gonna be Purdue's next athletic director if everything goes right.
and what do you think? So I have friends that have asked me that question. What do you think? We have another 2 to 4 years,
Probably. I mean, Babinski's what, 65, 66? Like
and maybe
he's
a
not
little
young.
older than that, but he's right
It's
there.
like he's right there, and it's
Yeah,
probably he'll take it to year 70, and it's not like he's going to be hiring a new basketball coach or volleyball coach or baseball coach
right.
or women's basketball coach. Like it
Yeah,
seems like, and this hire, he'll probably make sure that it's on solid ground. And if I had to bet, the next football coach will be the next kind of major hire that Purdue makes. And if and when, whether it's 6, 10 years, whatever from now, 3 years, whatever, I think it might be made by Grimes, or the next AD, right?
yeah,
But the hiring of Walters and the way that he's handled the program so far really shows that Purdue isn't shying away from the new reality of college sports.
Right.
Purdue is saying this
They're trying to
we
figure out, well, how do we fit in this, right?
we flourished beforehand. We aren't going to ignore it now. Everything the NCAA hasn't done, it's we are going to embrace it. We're going to thrive. We're going to hire an up and
Whatever
comer
it
who's known
is,
nothing. Exactly. Who can change with it, who's not going to talk about the good old days. I
right?
love that, right? And again, and also to your point, admit when he screwed up, right? Because he's
Yeah,
young and he's just doing this, he's just leading a program for the first time.
right.
And it seems like he's got people on, on board. And we've got Painter too, which is like, he seems like he's approaching dean of college basketball coaches
Yeah,
status, where like
it's crazy.
everybody is kind of, he's on every committee and everybody kind of defers to him and
Right, right.
loves to hear him talk and everything.
He's
And so
missing
it's
one thing, just like Zach Edey. He's missing one damn thing.
yeah,
And we're not even talking about national title,
the
by the way.
banner. Yeah, that would be nice.
Just give us a damn Final Four. Do it for a niche.
Do it
Don't
for
you don't have to
me.
do it for me. All I do is complain. Do it for a niche.
So, Rosie Boiler Down. I like this. Rosie
Yeah.
and optimistic Boiler Down.
Right.
You're
Why not?
feeling good.
Yeah.
You've got a glow about you, my friend.
Yeah. Well, I listen. My perspective on the whole thing, is why wouldn't you enjoy things for what they are? And the continued this is the good old days. I have no idea how you couldn't say that. I challenge anyone who is watching, listening to this, whatever, dig deep into the stats, the winning percentages of Purdue basketball, Purdue football, whatever, and tell me how we're not in the good old days.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's hard to go from shitty Wisconsin to really good Barry Alvarez, Wisconsin. It doesn't happen very often.
You called this almost 10 years ago. Painter is already the greatest basketball coach that Purdue has ever had. I mean, like you were saying, we know the trajectory it's got, like after he, not 10, but after he got through that 13, 14 spell, and where it was like, okay, like this is our guy for the rest of eternity until he decides to hang it up. It's like, you just put, you just extrapolate like 25 wins on average.
Do you remember? I mean, I think, was it 5-6 years ago? I did that in June.
That's it.
You remember that?
Yep.
I thought, I was like, whoa, it opened my eyes. I was like, he's going to shatter everybody's record.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, listen, there are eras of the Painter, the Painter tenure, the eras of the Painter time at Purdue. Okay.
There are these, if you will.
And he's, you know what? You can't blame him. If you've been in a job a long time, you can feel what he's going through. He's trying to figure things out. He's trying to deal with all these variables coming at him. He's done a pretty good job at kind of sticking and moving. Well, right now, he's in a low spot in the postseason. In the regular season, he's absolutely figured it out. He will figure out the postseason. I'm not saying he's going to figure it out national championship. I'm saying at least to get to another Final 8, if not a Final 4. The regular Matt Painter bow out in the tournament was play to your seed, and he did that for a long time.
Yep, that was the joke. 15 years. It was like win the top 3 in the Big Ten, and a Sweet 16.
Sweet
that's
16.
it. Like
that's not a bad. It's not a bad thing. Especially not a bad thing when we just saw what we just saw. Right, yeah. But this is a lull. I truly believe we'll get out of this at least to get back to that Sweet 16, Sweet 16, Sweet 16 rhythm. If not, take a step over. And the reason I think we take the step over, I'm sorry, I'm contradicting myself from just a month and a half ago. But the reason I think he at least bangs into the Elite Eight.
We're buying back in.
The reason I think is he's taking swings with the right type of players, the right type of system, guys that are buying into what he is selling. Somebody, was it the guy that you like so much on CBS?
Norlander.
Yeah. Norlander said this in pre-con last year. If you take enough swings, you're going to freaking get a home run eventually. Yeah. He is taking swings. And I mean, with the teams, the fact that they get to number 1 in the regular season. Now you have, okay, first it was a flirt with number 1. Then it's 7 weeks. This year, they may start out at number 1. You can't tell me that there's something better happening.
And to, this is Kyle Seago's question that
Yeah,
can kind of take us out. Are we staring down the barrel of the most anticipated and highest expectation Purdue basketball season, season in Purdue basketball history? I mean, like,
we're
if
close.
if Purdue wouldn't, if last year Purdue wouldn't have run away with the Big Ten and won the Big Ten tournament title, like all of us were thinking this year was the year that it was all kind of shaping up. This year
Right.
and then next year, if Catchings joins, even if Zach leaves, like this 2 or 3 year window starting next year and ending probably in 25, like uh, sorry, in 26. So 20 the tournament runs in at least 24 and 25, if not also 26. Like this is a window. This is a real window
But
when
here's the
Purdue's on the
problem with
vines of it.
your idea that it's a window, because I've said that in recent past.
And it's
These
not to
windows
say
keep happening.
exactly.
These windows roll.
It
This
could
is
be a new
why.
one.
This is why I
It's a
believe
hallway of windows.
it's a
It's a whole,
hallway of windows, and he's going to eventually step through a big one. I really believe that,
as you
because
do, as you step through
goodness
windows.
gracious, goodness, how could you think he won't? Like, if you watch enough college sports, how could you think he won't get through there?
The
Like,
good guy, a good coach. I mean, Jay Wright was this, right? A good coach
yeah,
has to win at some point, right?
yeah.
It can't just always be scumbags. Like, and again, I don't say this just to be high and
And let's do
mighty,
that.
and
Let's focus
but
on the
like,
Jay Wrights of the college world instead of the bullshit that reigns so heavy. It's
yeah,
so easy to remember the guys that are just crooks. And
yeah,
it's so easy to remember Bill Self first,
yeah.
right? But
Now that
let's
he's
think of Jay
recovered, I
Wright.
have no
Let's think of
that
guys that grinded for a while and then got it done.
breakthrough. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And so
found the breakthrough.
it is that it we're entering a 2 or 3 year run where it's got. I mean, the expectations are going to be really high on Purdue. Purdue is no longer a plucky, also ran like Purdue's the hunted now in
Yeah.
the next couple of years. And Purdue was hunted pretty effectively last year, to be fair. And so it's like, you got to get used to it. And maybe that's a lump that Zach had to take and the team had to take. And, especially the backcourt, like, that trial by fire, talking about that, like and you
The
need a
Zach
little bit
Edey,
of,
by the way, the Zach Edey that everybody, I mean, there's so many reasons to like the guy, but one of the extra reasons to like the guy is the Zach Edey that pulled the mic away from Braden Smith
yeah,
and blamed himself when
yeah,
the media was trying to go at Braden. That leader that is out front is also the same leader that's at practice every day.
yeah.
That type of thing. By the way, it's not just that affects this team, because there are young guys on this team that they see the way he leads and they become that type of leader.
It's Carson. It's the
Yep.
Carson effect. It's the Biggie effect, right? Which
Right.
is like, oh, you see these guys working, like you see these guys leading, like
Right. Your
they're
best
it's
player
a
on your team works the hardest.
it's
The
that's
best
the
player on
Painter
your
thing,
team
right?
listens the most.
Yeah, and
Goodness
so it's like
gracious.
and so it's gonna be a fun year. I am excited for Colvin. Like I think every team needs a little bit of a wild card, like especially in the backcourt. Like Braden Smith, oh, he's too logical. He's too too controlled. He was over. But by the end of the season, he was overthinking. I want Colvin just to gun. I want him. I just want him to. He's confident, and he's that kind of. I think more than Heidi. Heidi is probably going to be a 2 or 3 year kind of thing before we see
Yeah. Yeah.
polished, right?
But Heidi's going to do some things that are going to make our heads explode this year. Like,
Yeah.
we'll be like, he
What?
just went up and he just
Yeah.
stayed there. And then he waited for the second defender and he yammed on that dude, right? Shit's gonna
It's
happen. Like,
we're
it
gonna
will be real. It's
it'll
going to
make
happen.
it'll make Jaden look normal. Yeah,
Yes.
like it's.
Yeah.
I mean, and so but Colvin in terms of like postseason
So
kind of thing,
if you want
that's
the
your guard, right?
sobering thing, and I touched a bit on this behind closed doors, didn't talk a lot about it. The sobering thing that Colvin's got to work on, he's got to understand that he's not the alpha anymore.
Yeah, and
Because
hey,
he had straight up, I have heard from multiple sources. Now that he's signed at Purdue, I can be very honest with what I think about him. He had things that were straight up attitude problems at his high school.
but
Okay. And so now he's got to come in and say, yeah, I'm a good athlete. And I got to humble myself now as I learn from these guys. Now, does he have it? I don't know.
I think
I
so.
sure as hell, if he does, oh,
Special,
watch out.
special. I mean, like, and he's coming
Extremely
into a team.
special.
He's coming into a team with a player that won every award on the books, right?
Yep.
And who decided to come back, and he's making seven
Right.
figures, right? I
Right.
mean, and is the face of college basketball next
Well,
year.
that's a new problem, by the way. Right there, you said a player on the team is making seven figures.
Yeah.
And we've heard all these stories about the NIL rich guy ruining the chemistry of a team. Now, will that happen on this team? I don't think so.
Usually the problems that happen are when those players haven't earned it yet, right? Like
Right. Right.
who are joining the team with only high school tape. Zach Edey dominated the entire sport for a year and won every award on the shelf and decided to come back. He didn't start last year with a seven-figure contract, but he ended last year with it, right? And so
Yeah.
it is a little bit different. I don't
So
know. I
what's the
think it's
one game
special.
right now you've seen and I'm my brain's so bad. We've seen some of the schedule. Is there one game as you look ahead that you're like, okay, this is one. It's so dumb for us to even care about November and December, by the way. It's so dumb. We've learned it doesn't do us any good. But is there a game that you're like, man, I want to see what they do in that game? I want to see what this team looks like at that point. That'll be my progress report game. Do you
I
have any
mean,
of that?
I mean, my biggest thing is that my brother is a Xavier grad, and
Right?
Purdue is just
Yes.
scheduled against
I
Xavier,
freaking hate Xavier.
and
I hate
it's
Xavier.
now going to be just a war
Yep.
between us, right?
Right.
I mean,
Your brother's a delightful human, by the way.
The
I don't know if he
Toronto
ever
game,
listens to us. He is a great dude.
the Toronto game, would be fun. I really just do want to see. We've seen Zach against athletic teams. We've seen Zach against these pressing teams. I want to see kind of I do want to see him stretch a little bit in terms of like where he is on the where he is on the court and what his role is on the court. His shot, like a little bit more of a defensive anchor. Like it's less so in individual games. Even though the Xavier one, at least for our family, is the one that we're marking.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's
but
fun.
like you want to see kind of new facets like he added the year before. Which again we have a 2 year track record and like he's added.
What if they go into Hawaii and they don't win a game? Does that bother you?
I mean, what if they went into Hawaii and won it all? Right? Like does
We'd
it
all be
bother?
like, okay, don't care. I would think,
Exactly. Like to me, we were throwing the 2019 season away in December.
yeah,
Yeah, in December of 2018, after the seniors left, the super seniors left, and it was just Carson and Klein
right.
and Harms and Eastern, and we were throwing the season away.
Yep.
Honestly, I don't care. I stay in the top 25, stay in the top 12. You want to stay in that top 12 because it gives you that top three seed, right?
Yeah.
And set yourself up for a good tournament run because in the end, that's what the year is going to be
That's it.
measured
Yeah.
by. Right.
Yep. Yep. You're not going to Maui, correct?
I am, unless the J Money Endowment Fund comes through.
Right.
No.
So we actually, the B Dowd family did some research because this is a big deal in our family. LBD is a senior in high school,
He's been.
and this gets me it gets me right here. I'm not kidding. Like it.
Is
So
he going
we
to
so
have I mean, we're going to have to live stream the college
when
decision
he
with.
gets his hat on the table.
Yeah.
Well, right now Purdue is on that table, which is
Okay.
awesome.
Okay.
Which is awesome.
That's all you need to ask. That's all
And
you
part
can
of it,
ask.
like counsel like yours, talking, like you've told us about, engineering and, he's leaning towards data science and all these things. But hearing from engineers, we have a couple level headed engineers, his uncle, a good friend of mine who's kind of a sometimes BS listener. He's an industrial engineering grad, which he always says the dumb engineers going to industrial. And I'm like, I don't want, I would never say it because I wouldn't be invited to any of your parties. Okay. Like they would not, they would know right away. But anyway, he Purdue is on the table. And my wife said, you know what? This could be the last fall, spring where we can have a full family vacation before college. Let's look at Maui. And
Go
I
big
looked
and
at
go home.
Maui, Anish.
Oh, and then were they
Holy
googly
crap.
eyes? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like we're looking at 13 grand to start to get four
Yeah.
people there. And then the tickets are impossible.
Yeah.
They're impossible because they're in like our living room. And so You get there, you spend all that money, everything's expensive there, and then the tickets are going to cost you like 6 grand, like something stupid. You have to be a high John Purdue
PPC.
or
Yeah.
whoever, whichever alumni base to get in the place. And then if you're not, which I'm not, surprisingly, um, you have to just shell over all sorts of ridiculousness. And I was like, man, this is not it. And I literally said to my wife, I was like, do you understand the ramifications of us taking this trip? The long view. We are going to be paying for college, but
And
we're going to,
this trip.
oh my gosh. And I was like, this doesn't work. The math, it doesn't work. And we wanted to make it happen. It
We're
doesn't
looking
work.
for a sponsored trip, is what we're trying to say.
That's right. That's exactly what we're trying to say. And so that leads me to one thing I will say. Um, we do have some exciting things developing, possibly for BS, for partnerships, something maybe bubbling. I will say this though, that regardless, we do appreciate AJ's and Martin Vintage being with us here thus far. Adam and I text regularly. And I love Adam. He's a great guy. I don't doubt anything where our footing is there, but we've got some exciting stuff happening. And so the future is bright for our Boilers in football. The future is bright for our Boilers in basketball. And the future is bright with boiledsports.com and the YouTube feed and the Twitter feed and Anish and Jay having hair products for as long as they can keep their flowing locks. Look at that. There's no widow's peaking that guy.
You've seen
Doesn't have any of it. Look at
you've
he doesn't
seen
have any
Jalen
widow's
Rose.
peaking.
You've seen Jalen Rose on TV.
Oh my
Hair
gosh.
PEDs are here, so
Oh, they are
you
here.
could walk out. You could walk out with hair PEDs.
Right, right. That's an unbelievable head of hair that he's got on his head, and it's jet black. Come on, Jalen. What's
I feel
Jalen?
like
3 years older than me, probably. Right? He's
it's
50.
so sharp that if you were to like just nick it, your finger would start
Yeah,
bleeding.
unbelievable,
It's
unbelievable.
incredible. Shout out
Yeah.
to Jalen Rose's
Well, I
hair.
mean, LeBron James has been living a hair lie for a decade. I
Uh,
mean, shoot.
It's from the right angle. It's like velvet. You know those like velvet things where you rub
Yeah.
it one way, it's one
Yes.
color. You rub it the other, it's
But the
another.
funny thing is, you can see there's so many pictures. He's like a brown recluse or a um what's the Black Widow. He's got that shape in the back of his head. But he's not quite as dangerous as those guys anymore.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
every
yeah.
now and then it turns out.
He's still incredible, and even though I don't love the NBA, but I love playoff basketball still.
Watch the
Uh,
finals. I'm
yeah,
telling you, watch
so
this
fun.
finals.
Jimmy Butler's so fun,
Jokic is
and Jokic is so
incredible.
fun.
Jimmy
Goodness,
Butler is incredible. You will never
you see
see
him
anything
refusing
like
to
this.
take that trophy.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He is every stereotype of like Heat culture, like basketball, like
Yes.
Pat Riley basketball.
Yeah.
Like it's everything in Jimmy Butler is perfect.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great. And honestly, for Purdue fans that are wondering like how a big man plays any role in the NBA these days with how they've heard it. If you haven't watched him, if you've only been kind of casually following the NBA, you probably haven't seen too many Denver games. It is worth every second. He's one of the greatest basketball players we have ever seen. Don't let his doughy physique like fool you. He's like a
Are
beluga
you talking about
whale
me right now? Because
that
that's
plays basketball. And, you're the mini version. You're like the scaled
I
down.
got the doughy
You
thing
pull the
going.
corner.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. You're crafty.
yeah. Crafty, crafty. As long as I don't get you in the lane. Holy
Yeah, that's
moly!
right. Yeah.
Anish blocked a shot so hard when I came into the lane with the weak stuff. I mean, like he put
You
the
got
ball into the wall at the 2-5 World headquarters.
listen.
It was so bad.
If you throw it, you've got the low center of gravity. You could have moved me, but you didn't
But I
do it.
did. I chose not to. I tried to go finesse. Then that
Yeah,
was a bad
you
idea
totally
because I can't jump anymore. I used to be able to jump. So, well, I do appreciate everybody tuning in tonight, and appreciate my co-host coming on late notice. He was a gamer. He was all in right away, and appreciate everybody tuning in live. The Helvey sisters were here. That's a big deal to me. Sophia and Ava. They both checked in. I didn't say hi to one of them earlier. But really, there's a lot to be excited about. As Anish said, there's optimism in my voice. I just don't understand why you wouldn't enjoy the ride. I just don't understand it.
Yep.
And so excited Zach Edey's back. Do you have any parting thoughts? Any things you want to?
It's going to be a
Close out.
real different year next year. Don't let the most of the all of the stats about the returning the returning
96.75% of
things.
the minutes returning.
It's going to be a very, very different team and a very different product, on the floor next year. And it's going to, I think, probably reduce the ceiling for the regular season, but it's going to make Purdue better for the postseason. I
Yeah.
believe that.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, I can't make any promises to everybody out there, but as news arises where I feel like I must address it, I will. Otherwise, Michael is going to hold down the fort with the audio. If you have not tuned in, what's the name of his show? What did he?
Random BS.
Random BS. If you have not listened to a Random BS, please do. It's very good. It's very well researched. It's very thoughtful. It's the antithesis of a quick cast.
It's
So
the
if you
what of a
like the
quick
quick
cast?
cast,
Say that again. Could you try that one more time?
it is the antithesis of the quick cast.
Real good execution that time. Good
Right,
work.
that was better. But he's done such a good job with coming in with all of his thoughts organized. It sounds like he's got at minimum an outline, at maximum the whole thing's pre-written. He's so good. He's got it nailed down. And so at minimum, you're going to hear something from Michael relatively regularly as things bubble up. And hopefully the rest of us will be inspired and bring some content. And if we don't, be ready in August. We're coming with both barrels, baby. It's going to be fun. Walter's era is here.
It'll be fun.
Yep. So God bless you guys. God bless Zach Edey. I love you guys. Good night.